We landed on the moon in 1969. We did it again in 1971. Then again, and again. By the time 1972 ended, 12 American astronauts had walked on the moon, planted flags, collected rocks, and looked back at Earth from a place no human had ever stood before. It was the ultimate achievement. And then we stopped. No one has been back since. Think about that. 50 years, half a century. With all our technological progress, smartphones, self-driving cars, AI, space stations, we've never returned. Why? Why did humanity walk away from the greatest milestone in exploration? What happened after Apollo that made the moon go from we must to maybe someday? And more importantly, what does that say about us? Let's go back to the beginning, to the Cold War. In the 1960s, the US wasn't just racing to the moon, it was racing the Soviet Union. The space race wasn't about exploration, it was about dominance, prestige, proving who had the better science, the better government, the better future. When President John F. Kennedy said, "We choose to go to the moon," it wasn't just ambition, it was a declaration, a promise. And NASA made good on that promise with the Apollo program, an engineering miracle. Hundreds of thousands of people, billions of dollars, entire industries mobilized, and it worked. We won the race. But once the race was over, the momentum disappeared. There was no second act, no new competitor, no urgent reason to go back. The cost was enormous. Apollo was nearly 5% of the entire US federal budget at its peak. Today, NASA gets less than half of 1%. And with no political pressure, no Cold War deadline, suddenly, moon missions seemed more like luxuries than necessities. So we pivoted. Instead of going farther, we focused on staying longer. Enter the space shuttle. Low Earth orbit became our playground. Satellites, space stations, telescopes, science closer to home. And the moon? It faded into nostalgia, a black and white memory, a dusty flag in the windless void. But here's the thing, going to the moon wasn't just about science or flags or winning. It was about wonder, about asking, what are we capable of when we try? And somewhere along the way, we stopped asking. We told ourselves it was too expensive, too risky, that we already did the moon. But the truth? We barely scratched the surface. The Apollo missions explored only 6 small sites, all on the near side. The moon is over 14 million square miles. There's so much we don't know. Water in the shadows, ice beneath the surface, caves, lava tubes, even potential resources like helium-3, a possible fuel for future fusion energy. And let's not forget the biggest reason of all. If we want to go to Mars, if we want to live on other worlds, the moon is the training ground. It's close. 3 days away, no atmosphere, harsh radiation, the perfect test lab for learning how to survive beyond Earth. If we can't build a base on the moon, how can we hope to live on Mars? So again, why haven't we gone back? Because it's complicated, because priorities shift, because governments change, because inspiration fades, and because, despite what movies show us, space is hard. Every mission risks lives, billions of dollars, years of planning. And without a clear reward, it's easy for politicians to say, not now. But something is changing. After decades of silence, the moon is calling again. NASA's Artemis program aims to return humans to the moon, this time not just to visit, but to stay. New rockets, new suits, a lunar gateway orbiting the moon. And if all goes well, boots on the surface again this decade. But this time we're not alone. China is developing its own moon missions. India just made a historic lunar landing. Private companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and others are eyeing the moon with bold plans. It's not just about exploration now, it's about economics, partnerships, and preparing for the next leap forward. The moon is becoming the new frontier again, a stepping stone, a launch pad, a symbol. Because going back isn't just about planting flags or checking a box, it's about rekindling the spirit that got us there in the first place, the drive to go further, to ask bigger questions, to unite under one sky, to remind ourselves that we are not meant to stay still. So why haven't we returned to the moon? Because we forgot how much it mattered. Because we got distracted, comfortable. But now, maybe for the first time in decades, we're remembering. And maybe, just maybe, the next footprints in the lunar dust will be the first steps towards something much greater. But as we reignite our interest in the moon, a deeper question arises. What is it that drives us to explore in the first place? Is it curiosity? Ambition? The need to conquer the unknown? Or maybe it's something more personal. Maybe it's the feeling we get when we look up at the night sky and we see that pale gray circle glowing softly above us. we don't just see rock and dust, we see possibility. The moon has always been more than a destination. It's a mirror of our dreams. It's been woven into myths, religions, stories, and songs. It pulls our oceans and whispers to our hearts. We stare at it in wonder, in love, in longing. So when we went there in 1969, it wasn't just a technological feat, it was a human one. We touched a dream. And then, for reasons that made sense on paper but never made sense in the soul, we let go. Now imagine a child born today. She grows up watching rockets land themselves. Robots explore Mars. Telescopes capture galaxies from billions of years ago. And one day, she hears a story. Once we went to the moon, and she asks the question we've all thought, why did we stop? What do we tell her? That it was too expensive? That people lost interest? That we chose convenience over courage? Or do we say, we're going back? Not just for us, but for you. Because the sky is not the limit. It never was. Returning to the moon isn't just a mission. It's a message. It tells every person on Earth that the impossible is only impossible until it's done. That we can dream bigger, build smarter, push farther. That we can solve problems, not just in space, but right here at home. The technology we develop for space exploration has always come back to benefit Earth. New materials, medical innovations, communication systems. But more than that, it brings us perspective. When you stand on the moon and look back at Earth, you don't see borders. You don't see nations. You see one fragile, beautiful world. You realize how connected we are, how small we are, and how big our responsibility is to protect what we have and to explore what we don't yet understand. So maybe in returning to the moon, we return to something deeper, to hope, to unity, to the part of ourselves that dares to believe the future can be better than the past. The moon is waiting. It always has been. And now, we're finally listening again. Maybe this time we won't just visit. Maybe this time we'll build. We'll learn. We'll stay. Maybe this time, when we look back at Earth, we'll know exactly why we came. And maybe, just maybe, we'll never again ask why we stopped. Instead, we'll ask, where to next? Because in the end, returning to the moon isn't just about science or ambition. It's about identity. It's about asking ourselves, who are we if not explorers? If not learners? If not a species constantly reaching for something more? Every step into the unknown has shaped our history. From crossing oceans to reaching orbit, we've always dared to do what was once thought impossible. And now, with the moon in our sights again, we stand at the edge of another great leap. Not because we have to, but because we can. Because deep down, we know that standing still is never the answer. And even if the journey is hard, even if it takes time, we go forward anyway. Not for glory, not for headlines, but for the future. For that child who will one day look up at the moon and not wonder why we stopped, but dream about where we'll go next.